Hi, this is Jason Nickleby, Coordinator of Officials with the Minnesota State High School League, and this is basketball officiating training tape number 5. Going to take a look at 3 more plays this week. Really focus on working our primary areas, pre-gaming with our crews to make sure we're on the same page, last second shot mechanics, long switch mechanics. Let's discuss our philosophy and just make sure we're on the same page as a crew throughout each game. And in these plays, remember not picking on any one official or crew or team, just trying to learn from these plays as we move through the season. Doing a nice job out there. Keep it up. Let's finish strong as we head into the sections here at the end of the month. And with that, let's look at the plays. On this play, let's talk about transition mechanics and then a little bit about the judgment and the violation piece with the traveling. But let's talk about our transition coverage. So we have a transition play here, only a minute into the game, so we need to be ready to officiate. We can't coast into it, and we're ready, and we pick this up, and that's good. But when we have a transition play like this where it comes down the lane line on the center side here in transition, especially when we have a potential for contact, violations, and so forth. And remember, this is the center's primary play, even though we're in transition. We would recommend that the center come to a stop, because if we stop here at the 28-foot mark, we're going to have a better vantage point, better accuracy on the violation and whether that should be called or not. So let's come to a stop at about the 28-foot mark, and then if they end up pulling the ball back out or something like that, we can adjust accordingly. But that would be our recommendation as far as handling this play in transition, is come to a stop right about the 28-foot mark, if not maybe a little further out, so that you have that better vantage point. And then as it relates to the traveling violation, let's take a look at when this dribbler picks up the ball. When he picks it up, left foot is pivot foot, then he ends up kind of stuttering with both feet, and the left foot, which was the pivot foot, ends up going in the air, coming back down to the ground. Both feet actually do that, and this is not a jump stop. This would be enough for a traveling violation. Remember, we are picking up the pivot foot. If they clearly establish a pivot foot, if they pick that up and put it back down prior to attempting a shot or pass, that would be a traveling violation. That's what we have here. And it is possible that we could have contact that would cause the traveling violation. If that's the case, let's make sure we get that contact. But I think in this particular case, the contact is incidental in nature, and we have a traveling violation because when he gathers the basketball, left foot is the pivot foot in contact with the ground, and then picks it up, puts it back down before attempting the shot and the try for goal there. So correct traveling violation by rule. Make sure we review that language. And we're going to be a little bit more lenient when they're going to the basket, as we've talked about, but in this case, clearly a traveling violation, and we handle that well. Just remember, from a transition standpoint, if we keep going on this play and keep going all the way beneath the free throw line, we have the potential for getting straight lined behind that defensive player and looking through bodies, where if we come to a stop on this play and officiate with a frame of vision down that lane line more so, we'll have a much better chance of picking up any potential fouling action as well as violations. But overall, well handled as far as our hustle and mechanics, and then a good call with the traveling violation. This is the very next play after the transition traveling violation. You see we have a shot attempt on the side of the floor opposite the bench. Trail works very nice and low, as well as the center. Good positioning in the lead. We're open to the floor, good field of vision. So mechanically, position-wise, exactly where we want. We take the shooter to the floor. Just really well done as far as our mechanics, our positioning, and being ready to officiate this play, because this happens very quickly. And then you see on the rebounding action, we have a deflection off of a number of players opposite that of the lead. and the center, who is looking right at it, working nice and low, has a good view, is able to provide assistance. So that's what I want to talk about here is our help mechanics. So you see the lead who has primary responsibility for the end line coverage puts his hand in the air to indicate that we're stopping the clock, but he doesn't guess. If he's not sure, he's going to look to the center for assistance. So he comes across the lane line, looks right at the center, asks for, if you need to specifically verbalize it, say help or something along those lines, totally fine. You're going to be looking at the center for assistance on this play. Just keep your hand in the air, and then centers, we want you to do exactly what the center does in this example. Do not leave it open to interpretation or guessing. Just flat out point and indicate the color. That way, there's no confusion about what kind of help you're providing, because sometimes if we try to be quiet about it or put our hand on our chest to indicate which direction it should be going, sometimes the lead or another official might misinterpret that, and then we have to end up fixing it. So this is exactly what we want to do. Lead, in this case, put your hand in the air, come across the paint, look to the center or the trail or whatever it happens to be for help. And if you need to specifically verbalize it, no problem. Say help, and then centers or trails or the helping official, let's do exactly what this center does here. Point and indicate the color, then we can move on with the game. So this is well done from a positioning and mechanics, handling the play. And then this is also well done as it relates to our help mechanics. So nicely done by the crew on this play. On this last play, let's talk about our front court coverage and our movements specifically as the lead, and then we can talk about player control, rules, and mechanics. So you see we're coming down in transition. The ball is going to settle on the center side right in front of the bench, and anytime the ball is going to settle on one side of a lane line, that as a lead should give us an indication we need to think about flexing to the other side. Does it mean we absolutely must? Not necessarily, depends how the play is developing, but in this particular case it settles on the center side, so we should at a minimum, if we're on the other side of the lane, we should take a close down step towards the lane line and then initiate the flex, which we do here, and then we are flexing right into this contact, which is fine. If we can come to a stop, even better, just to make sure we have a really good idea of what we're seeing in the accuracy. But this is a good time to initiate the flex. So we do a nice job of that here. And then you see as number 33, the defender comes over to play help defense, establishes legal guarding position while that player with the ball is still in contact with the floor. If that player takes off, jumps in the air, then number 33 needs to establish that legal guarding position prior to that occurring. In this case, gets 2 feet on the floor facing his opponent and then maintains that legal guarding position legally. And remember, they don't have to have 2 feet on the floor at the time of contact to earn a player control foul against the opponent. So this is really good defense, and we do a really nice job of establishing that the defender gets legal guarding position, the offensive player plays through his chest, and we have an offensive foul. And I would say there are quite a number of times on these kinds of plays where the ball handler has the ball in their possession and they're at or near the floor. Almost all the time they're in contact with the floor, so more than likely we're going to have a player control foul. We can't have a no call on a play like this with significant contact. We need to put air in the whistle rather, on this kind of play, and we do that. So the final piece of this is our mechanics on this are excellent. Stop the clock, punch, really well done. The only picky thing, like I said, would be if you can come to a stop, maybe on the S of Minnesota and view this play, that might be better. And then the other reason that that might be a good idea to think about or consider is remember this is a secondary defender that's coming over to assist. If he doesn't establish legal guarding position outside of the restricted area, even though he has established legal guarding position, if it were in the restricted area, it would be a restricted area blocking foul if that were the case. But in this case, gets both feet on the floor, facing his opponent outside the restricted area, maintains it legally, contact through the chest. This is an offensive foul, properly called by the lead. Good movement and mechanics, well handled by the crew on this play. Okay, that will do it for training tape number 5. Couple more plays to consider: our movements, our mechanics, positioning. Really work on the communication. We did a nice job of that on the second play on this tape. Our crew communication is going to be really critical as we get down towards the end of the season. You know, making sure that we're on the same page at the end of a half, understanding the number of fouls, what our situations are as a crew, just trying to be as consistent as we can be as a crew on one particular game. It's impossible for all of our crews to be consistent from one game to the next. Even as one official, it's hard to be consistent from one game to the next. But if we can be as consistent as we can be as a crew on one particular game, we're going to be in fairly good shape that night. So keep working hard, keep communicating well with your crew and coaches and players. Hang in there. Got a couple weeks to go, regular season, and then we're into the postseason. So have a great weekend. Stay safe and healthy. We'll talk to you next week.